in the hands of the Bibliothecary. Hello. It's your friendly neighborhood Bibliothecary Morgan here. Today we're going to be reading A History Not of Heroes, an in-game codex from Dragon Age. So without further ado, grab your cuppa, make yourself comfortable, and let's start reading. A History Not of Heroes. Readings in the Ugly Heart of Change by Philium, a bard. Mopharoth and Sacrifice. Andraste, Our Lady, the sword and the fire against Tevinter, betrayed to the Empire in exchange for a kingdom. Mopharoth, now synonymous with treachery. But would Andraste have won? And if not, what would we have lost? Let us look not just at the act, but at the why of it. As the armies of faith pierced the imperial homeland, it was revealed not as a wave, but as an arrow. And, as any hunter will attest, if your aim is not true, there is no returning to the bow. We must consider how much of Our Lady's victory to this point was against true Imperium, and how much was against the echoes of Empire. Andraste the Inspiration may not have considered such, but Mopharoth the General fought for homeland, not visions. Was it victory or defeat that his betrayal held at bay? Mopharoth made the deal that killed Our Lady. That is fact. And when Andraste died, Mopharoth was gifted everything from the southern plains south. How generous and impossible to hold this must have seemed. Let us look on Mopharoth and the legacy he divided among his sons, not with eye for accusation, but from a tactical consideration. For he must have known that mere rivals had never stopped Tevinter. What if he set about creating peers, and none of this was accident? How then fared Iseroth, Evrian, and Verald? Division and distance. For a supposed creature of jealousy and greed, Mopharoth is less so indeed, for while his word brought low the bride of the Maker, his prize was quickly divided and distanced. Let us consider the lesser of the sons in this matter. Of Evrian we know little. The middle boy, he was tasked with ruling the lands to be the Marches. No claim by the father was made, no in my name to humble, and that freedom is shown in the result, for Evrian himself was the least concerned with power. He among all led by example, not demand, and spoke only of sacrifice. When betrayal was revealed, Evrian acts as a man broken, dispersing his holdings to the various tribes. It was a penance that spared him his family, but it also dispersed influence. To this day the free marches are scattered. Of Verald more is known, for his actions bring him to the start of our nation. But his folly begins in Navarra, where we must ask, was this the will of a betrayer father, or a mistake of youth? Mopharoth gave rule to the youngest, Verald, and never claimed Navarra. Never did he sit on the throne, and he is thought to have rarely visited. But his name is hated there most of all, for it was bartered for legacy by the son. Unlike Evrian, Verald spoke not as example, but to claim. Never his name was mentioned without that of his mother and father. His claims were bold, their actions were his, and their thoughts all shared. But from the father on his throne in Ferelden, no word is recorded. And we wonder, was it deliberate? For when the betrayal was revealed, all the ties to Mopharoth were vilified, and so strong were the ties that Verald had drawn that his court was killed to a man, and he was forced to flee. Had he kept silent, as seems the will of the knowing father, and had he girded as the father had guided the elder, Iseroth, then Verald might have remained to rule. But that would require that the betrayer not be as he is drawn, and it would have kept Verald in Navarra, and it would have kept Verald from Orlais, and it would have prevented the further betrayal that truly birthed Orlais. The death of diversity. What could hold back an empire? Another. What could hold back so defined a people as Tevinter? Another. Let us consider if eldest Iseroth was not meant to honor Mopharoth, for the father's fate was already condemned by hidden betrayal. Let us consider that Iseroth was told to turn from ties to Mopharoth, to look forward, not back. What of his actions then? Iseroth was granted a land of tribes, of scattered alliance. His answer was the grand unification, which most condemned as arrogance. Sweeping changes in trade, relocations to break local allegiances, all to favor centralized trade and power. Cities were leveled to expand a new capital, a powerful and influential city of a new nation, Val-Royeaux of Orlais. And all in the name of not lost Andraste, but of holding back looming Tevinter. Power was united, but cultures less so. Investing everyone in the new Orlais stratified the classes, and through it all spread a bitterness that a Ferelden ruled. Iseroth avoided the stain of his father, for he was seen as victim too, but he was still Alamari. What if, dear readers, the final unifying element came not from accident or even the deliberate actions of Iseroth, but from a common hatred, and not the common hatred of the day? The sons of Mofaroth would succeed at creating a peer for Tevinter, but only at the cost of themselves. United in hatred. If we are re-examining motive, let us not stop at the sons of the betrayer, for the first leader of young Orlais after the sons was Jesavus, chattel wife of 2 of them. But examine the facts. A proud daughter of the Syrian, chosen not unkindly by Iseroth to be his bride, it was her reach that granted him power to unify. Consider what she witnessed in the consolidation of her people. She has always been betrayed with sadness, but what if, when our nation was born, the game was born with it? Judge her actions not as property, but as master, and what changes. As victim, Iseroth, rumored cruel, breaks the clans in a lust for power. His brother, Verald, exiled from his own machinations in young Navarra, appeals to the saddened wife, and promises a new path. The brothers vie, and Verald wins, and then demands the hands of Jesavus, another Ferelden greedy for power. In a decade, the shy victim Jesavus is the figurehead of the people's rebellion against the last son of the betrayer. As master, bound to rivalries far older, she harbors a hatred beyond Tevinter, and while Iseroth is distracted, with personal concern or with building a nation to withstand his own people's enemy, she invites the broken brother and sets him against the driven. While accepting the marriage to the victor, Jesavus seeds rebellion among those who remember how their lands were taken not a generation before. Both leave her as ruler, as Gia. But should not the rule of a victim be uncertain? Jesavus rules for 42 years. There were no great swings backward, no people's retribution, for she had become accustomed. If the goals of Iseroth were selfish, and the goals of Jesavus was to reverse them, then Orlais is born of the failure of both. But if Iseroth built his father's wall and Jesavus wanted revenge, then we are a nation of 2 successes, 2 parents in opposition, but in partnership. That was A History Not of Heroes by Philium, a bard. Thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, I'll catch you later. But be sure to come back and visit the Bibliothecary.